This video will show you how to make a coil pot. When you get your clay, it's going to be in a cube, so you usually have to pound it into a sphere shape to start your pinch pot. And I always hold it in my hand like this. I never pound it on the table because that's just going to make a pancake. Once you get close, you can squeeze it like this, and you can roll it in your hands or on the table to make it round and start to get it nice and smooth. If you have any large cracks like this one, I usually take the time to kind of smooth those away, because the smoother your sphere is to begin with, the smoother your pinch pot will be after you're finished with it. When your sphere is ready, you can go ahead and drill a hole with your thumb. Use the tip of your thumb to drill the hole. And then you simply start to pinch. Notice I am still holding it in my hand. I hardly ever put it on the table. I want my coil pot to be kind of wide, so right here I'm not actually pinching. I'm sort of pulling and pushing that clay open further, but I'm not pinching it because I don't want it to get too skinny. I just tap it on the table to make the bottom nice and flat, and I do the same thing to the rim. This will make it much easier to scratch and attach a coil on top of. Here you can see that the rim of my pinch pot is about the thickness of my finger. I wouldn't want it any skinnier because it would make it really difficult to put a coil on top. So it's time to roll your first coil. You just squeeze it like that to get it ready. And do nice long rolls from the tips of your fingers all the way down to your wrists. Sometimes it starts to get kind of flat, almost like an oval. So here the trick is to just put it in front of you and pull back, and that will get it back into a nice round form. Here I'm going to check to see if the coil is the right size and if it's long enough. You can see it's a little bit short. So I'm going to roll it a little bit more to make it longer, and then I'll check again. There, it's a little bit too big, but we can always cut some off. So it's a little long. I'm just going to pinch a little bit off. And here it looks like I'm pinching, but what I'm really doing is getting the pinch pot and the coil lined up perfectly. Now I'm just going to smooth that together. And then I'll be ready to go ahead and scratch and attach, or as most people call it, snip and score. So I just get my tool and I start scratching. This should be like you need a band-aid, not stitches. If you scratch or cut it too deep, it will kind of make the coil want to break in half. So you do both sides. And then use some slip, or as I call it, goo. This is just the same clay that you're using. I've just soaked it in water for a long time, so it's very liquidy, but it helps these two pieces of clay stick together and never fall apart. wipe any extra on the can. And I just sort of rub it in like it's lotion. We'll wash our hands a little bit later. So it's not lined up, as you can see. Again, here I'm not pinching, it looks like it, but what I'm just doing is positioning the coil right on top of the pinch pot. That looks perfect. Now I'm going to actually kind of push and wiggle these together to make sure that they're really joined and they won't fall apart. If any of the slip has oozed out, just use your finger, kind of wipe that extra away. I wipe off the extra on the inside as well. And here I'm just showing you how strong that is. You should be able to pull on your coil a little bit and it should not come apart from your pinch pot. If it does, you need to go ahead and push that together a little better. I'm going ahead and starting another coil. And I repeat the process. This one was too short again, so I'm just gonna roll it a little bit more. Perfect. Smooth it together. I'm going to go ahead and roll another one before I scratch and attach. Too short again. Just smooth them together so they don't fall apart. Now I'm going to go ahead and scratch, just as I did before. Add some slip. Line them up as perfectly as you can, and then push and wiggle them together to make sure it's strong. Get rid of any excess slip. Do the same to the inside. Looks very nice. It's all lined up. And I'm just gonna push and wiggle them together again. So this coil is going to be kind of an extra big one because we're going to be stamping a pattern in it. So I want this one to be as thick as I possibly can make it. Checking to see if it'll fit. It's still too short. There we go. So I'm going to take some time to kind of tap this flat so that this large coil is the same thickness as the ones that are already on my pot. I'm going to smooth out any cracks, being careful not to make the coil thinner. I'm just kind of smoothing out the cracks there. Do the same to the other side. I'm just checking to make sure that this big coil is the same size as the ones below it. It looks alright, so I'm ready to stamp. So I have lots of stamps to choose from. Some have stamps on both sides, some don't. When you're ready to stamp, if you have some extra clay, you could practice this before you do it on this final one. But when I stamp, I kind of push down and then I wiggle it sort of in a circle like that. Take some practice to make sure that you stamp deep enough so you can see it, but not so deep that you're going to kind of squash or even cut through your coil. Go ahead and continue your pattern all the way across your coil. I'm going to check the length. And you can see that it's too big. I'm going to try to save my pattern if I can. Just going to take little bits at a time. Still too big. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to smooth it together. This whole time I'm really trying not to touch the pattern on this coil with my finger, because if you touch it and touch it and touch it, it's going to smooth out or smudge away the pattern that you made. So you have to try to keep your fingers off that pattern part. And then we scratch just as we did before. Making sure to do both sides. Add the slip. Make sure to line it up perfectly. And then push and wiggle them together. Sometimes if your finger can't get in that crack, you can use the rounded edge of your tool to scrape that extra slip out of there. I remove it from the inside as well. And that is looking pretty good. It's almost complete. Just tap the bottom a little bit to make sure that it's flat. And now I'm gonna do the last step. I call it refining. And what I'm doing is smoothing out any cracks or bumps that make your artwork look a little bit unfinished. Because right now it's nice and soft, but after it goes into the kiln, it'll be rock hard. So this is kind of your last chance to make sure that it looks as good as it possibly can. Just look for any kind of bumps or cracks like these and just gently smooth them away. There is my completed coil pot. I hope you have fun making yours.